On this episode, I talk about Remembrance Day, and we have Nick Dehod from the MS Society of Northern Alberta. Stick around. So yesterday was Remembrance Day. Bit of an emotional day for me. Oddly enough, Remembrance Day marks my 9-year anniversary as a person with multiple sclerosis. 9 years ago and plus 1 day, I guess, I was at work. At the time, I was a partner in a restaurant, and I was walking out of my office, and one of the cooks was bugging me for a raise. And as I was walking into the front of the house, my entire right side went numb. I immediately thought it was some sort of cardiac event, or I didn't know, but I knew it was serious. So, fortunately for me, my parents lived a 5-minute drive from the restaurant, so I called them. I don't know why I didn't call an ambulance. I probably should have called an ambulance, but I didn't. So, I called them, and they took me over to the Misericordia, and I knew it was serious because I didn't wait. I went straight in, and they gave me all kinds of tests. Eventually told me I wasn't having a heart attack, I wasn't having a stroke, but the on-call emergency doctor did ask me if I had any family history of MS, and I do on my mom's side. My maternal aunt got diagnosed, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. And yeah, and then, I didn't work again for 7 months, and over that 7 months, it was, constant tests and that, but that was when my big attack happened, was Remembrance Day. The irony of that doesn't escape me, but it was Remembrance Day, 2006. And here we are 9 years later, and I'm still around. Remembrance Day is also a tough day for me, for a number of reasons. 2 years ago, I don't know why everything happens on Remembrance Day, but 2 years ago, I had gone out to Remembrance Day memorial out in Wetaskiwin, because that's where my grandmother lives. And for whatever reason, I left my cell phone at home. So my wife and my kids and we went out there. And then when we got home, after going for lunch and that, so we were probably gone for 4 or 5, 6 hours. When we got home, I had a bunch of missed text messages on my phone, and all of which were from people that I knew from high school, and people that didn't necessarily associate with one another in high school. So I saw the names and I thought, oh, this probably isn't good. I don't know why I immediately thought it was bad, and it turned out it was. My good friend Blaine, he passed away, and I found out Remembrance Day 2 years ago. So, yeah, it was tough. It's a bit of a tough day. And I also always think about my grandpa Barry, my dad's dad. He was a World War II vet, and he would never talk about it. He passed away when I was 12, but he normally didn't talk about it. And I just remember one story that my dad's told me, because Grandpa Barry, he never talked about it with me, but my grandpa was one of the troops that had landed in Italy, and they were working their way into Europe that way. And I do remember, and I don't remember which town or city it was in, but it was near getting close to the end of the war, and it was at that point where they would fight in a city, and it would literally get down to block. The Axis forces would have one block, and the Allies would have another, and I guess my Grandpa was out on patrol and he was walking down the street. He turned a corner, and I don't know if it was an Italian troop or a German troop. I'm assuming it was an Axis truck, an Italian troop. Anyway, both these soldiers, they turn the corner. They're both armed. They look at each other, and I guess they both just kind of nodded and decided, this isn't the time, and they both turned and walked away. And it's a powerful story when you think about it. Those two men weren't part of the geopolitical forces that were pulling the strings of the war. These are men with lives and families and that, and they made a decision that day not to shoot each other, and I think that's I think it's pretty cool. So anyway, the other thing about Grandpa Barry was he was a runner. Although the pictures I've seen when he was running, he actually looked like a runner, unlike his grandson, who was me. But there are pictures from him in the war, competing in long distance races. And I, so when I think about when I'm running sometimes, or when I'm doing things like the really long run, I often think of him. So, yeah, I don't know what everybody else's experience with the Remembrance Day is, but for me, it's not the most fun, obviously. It's a time to reflect. It's time to look back. But hey, 9 years later, here I am. My mom made a good comment to me yesterday. She said, "Would you have ever imagined where you'd be now 9 years ago?" And the answer is absolutely not. I feel extremely fortunate that while I still live with MS, it hasn't changed the course of my life, and in some ways, it's enriched my life. I guess it stopped me from lying to myself anymore. Those lies that you tell yourself to excuse, the way you behave or the actions you take. When you're living with something as serious as MS, you really have to be honest with yourself. And yeah, it's been an amazing 9 years, and in a lot of ways. In the last 9 years, I met my wife, it'll be 6 years ago, this December. We met in December 2009, and we got married in August 2010. Our daughter, our first child, came in May 2011, and then our son came the June 2013. So it's been a really roller coaster ride for the last 9 years, and ups and downs and ins and outs, but yeah, it's been. I think I'm generally a happy person. What I don't realize though is when something's bothering me, I really suppress it, because I didn't realize until I went for a run yesterday, and I didn't realize until I got home how the weight of the 9-year anniversary was on my mind, or losing a friend like Blaine. It was just obviously it was bothering me, because I had a bit of a moment, and so I think it's always shocking to my wife, because she doesn't see it coming, because I don't let it on. But obviously I've suppressed it so far. I don't know what's coming, right? And then also yesterday, I got a call out of the blue from an old friend, and he said our other old friends in town whom we hadn't seen in over a decade, and he was in town because his brother had passed away. So I went for lunch with 3 old friends under not the nicest of circumstances. So it was just a day. That's part of the reason why this podcast is a day late getting out. But yeah, I just wasn't in the headspace yesterday to sit and talk into a microphone. But it is what it is, I guess. But I should update everyone. The training for the Really Wrong Run 2016 is now, we're now 3 weeks into it. I still don't feel like my old self. It's coming though. It definitely is coming. It's really hard to go from running, a few times a month to running, 4 or 5 times a week. My goal was to get right back into my program, just the way it was. Hey, I'm going to start running 5 days a week, and I'm going to do 80 kilometers a week, and then 90 kilometers a week. And well, when you take time off, the body just needs time to reacclimate itself. So, Chris from Blitz Conditioning has obviously been a huge help, and this week's been good. It's been good. My 5K times, one of my training times, 5K, have been consistently under 30 minutes, which is, for me, that's good. I mean, it's not like world championship time or anything like that, but for me, it's pretty good. So I'm happy with that. The biggest thing, and the biggest thing I've been focusing on this week is keeping my diet in check, because it's amazing how much impact that has on your performance. I mean, if you start eating garbage in, garbage out, I mean, it's really, if you're constantly eating junk food and, really high, greasy, fried and really nasty oils food, garbage in, garbage out, that's your output. And it's phenomenal how much of a difference you can feel just after being fairly clean for a few days. It made it difficult yesterday when I went for lunch with those guys, because out comes a giant plate of chicken wings, and then there's a spinach dip, and all this stuff sitting in front of you, and you just in the back of your head, just that carnivore, and he's just, I want to just rip into it. But I came through unscathed, so that's a bonus. And then my run today was good. And the weirdest thing's happening is that the way my schedule works is I try and run 5, 10, 5. So on Tuesday I run 5K, Wednesday I run 10, Thursday I run 5. I take Friday off. Well, I don't take Friday off, but I'm not running Friday. And I actually go and see Chris at Blitz Conditioning Friday morning, and what he's doing with me is he's trying to work on my mechanics, because I've had a lot of injuries over the years, not MS related, lots of sports related injuries. So I've got tight IT bands, I've got tight hips, bottom line, he's trying to work on my mechanics so that I run more efficiently, and ultimately I don't hurt myself, and that's kind of important. So and then Saturday, Sunday, I try and do longer runs. I think this Saturday I'm going to attempt 15K, and then I'll do a Sunday. I'll probably just do 10. And the whole theory behind it is you're training yourself to run on tired legs, so that when you go a long distance, you're used to just running on tired legs. And as long as you fuel yourself properly, because you have to take in calories while you're going, that once you get used to it, and it's also getting through those mental barriers, and that's really the biggest thing I'm having trouble with now, is pushing myself to try and like when I start to get tired and I feel like not stopping to run, it's a lot of mental training, and I forgot how tough that was. It's amazing. It's not even a year ago, and I've already forgotten how tough that is. So I'm working on that. The last thing I wanted to touch on before I get to the interview, I don't know if you guys saw it. I tweeted it out a couple days ago, but there was a story about this guy, Brian Clement. I guess he gives talks. He's from Miami or something. He gives talks to people, and apparently he's got yet another diet plan where he claims he can reverse MS. His particular, from what I gleaned from the article, basically eating a raw vegan diet will just cure your MS. And I think it's pretty clear from the article. It's an article on CBC News. I'll leave the link in the companion notes to the podcast. However, it's pretty clear that this guy's a charlatan. He's out to. He's preying on desperate people to make money. That's the tall and short of it. As some of you might know, I have time for people who want to talk about the impacts of diet on MS. I try to adhere to a paleo-like diet as much as I can. I do cheat on it. I'm no saint that way, but I try as much as possible. No gluten, no dairy, no soy. I take a wide variety of vitamins every morning, but I also take my meds. My Tecfidera and that. So I just. The reason why I tweeted it out is it's pretty clear from the article that this guy's he's just preying on people who are desperate, and that really angers me because it's so easy to do. I know when I got first diagnosed, and I'm sure a lot of you are on the same boat. When you first get diagnosed, you think you're looking for anything, because it's you go through a period of disbelief as how could this happen to me, right? And and you're so susceptible early on to thinking, oh, okay, so if I just eat raw carrots and celery and broccoli and nothing else and just drink water, everything will be fine. And while some of these diets may improve your overall health, they may lessen your chance of developing diabetes. They may help you lose weight. I've never read or been exposed to anything that compels me to believe that anyone has the magic bullet to cure MS. Not yet. Could it happen? I hope so. I definitely hope so, but I haven't seen it. And so anyway, if you're interested, read the article. Like I said, it was on CBCnews.ca a couple of days ago. The link will be in the companion notes. But speaking of developing a cure and support for people with MS and all that stuff, my guest today is Nick Dehod from the MS Society of Northern Alberta. I've met with Nick in person several times. He and I were interviewed together preceding the really long rundown MS last year. I'm in communications with Nick frequently. And the reason I wanted to interview him is I wanted to get somebody's voice from the MS Society to talk about the society, how he got involved with it, to talk about fundraising, how that works. Because I know there has been some conflicting stuff in the media recently about how the funds of the MS Society received or used. So we touch on that. We touch on some of the programs. We touch on the bike tour and a lot of good stuff. So really happy that Nick took the time to talk to me. And here's the interview. So I'm talking today with Nick Dehod from the MS Society. Nick, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, no worries, Sean. Thanks for having me.
One of the reasons I want to talk to somebody from the MS Society, well, for a number of reasons. Obviously, doing this podcast, I think I've reached out to a number of local MSers, and they've all had some contact with the MS Society. So why don't we start with how did you get involved in the MS Society, and what's your background with multiple sclerosis?
Sure. So, I guess the way in which I first got involved with the MS Society was volunteering when I was very young. I actually have several family members that have worked for the MS Society in the past. The first one being my aunt, who actually was the person who started the Edmonton Walk over 25 years ago, and at the time that was the first MS Walk in Canada. So that was obviously very exciting, and I guess I've had several other family members that worked here, and I myself came to find myself working at the MS Society after finishing my time at the University of Alberta Students Union, and I saw an opening for the bike tour manager position, and I was familiar with the event, and had volunteered before, and my parents ride in it regularly, and it was something that I was interested in, and I jumped on the opportunity to be involved.
And then you've since moved positions, correct? Why don't you tell us what your current position is?
Sure. So, yeah, I spent a couple of years working on the bike tour, and then I ended up moving over into the marketing and communications role about 2 years ago. There was some interest in seeing if, formally, it was a position that focused primarily on communications, but we were interested to see if we could give a little more attention to how we market our signature events, and then as well take a look at what we're doing with the society.
And for listeners out there, I can attest of Nick's current position firsthand, because he's always correcting me on how I say stuff when I get interviewed for the really long run. So now, why don't we talk a little bit about the bike tour? I know that for the first time on my bike team last year, I had another gentleman with MS on our team, and it was his first experience with the event. And I remember him and I rode together there on the way to Camrose. But when we actually got to the dinner and he saw 2,000 plus people in that huge exhibition center in Camrose, he was quite taken back, and now he's really motivated to keep doing it again. He wants his wife to get involved. So what was your experience with the bike tour, and what do you take away from it?
Yeah, it's funny. Every single year, there's a buzz that comes in our office, certainly when we're leading up to the bike tour, and what the energy that you feel throughout that weekend. And I think you can attest to this. It's just like a special experience. When I'm explaining it to people in the community that aren't familiar with it, I kind of ask them, like, what's your favorite event? And one that comes to mind for me is something like the Edmonton Folk Music Festival, where there's just something about that whole experience that really stands out. And I think that's because of the way in which no different than that folk festival, the bike tour is a volunteer-driven event, and we've had people involved, some of them now for over 26 years, and the kind of momentum that's created, it truly is it's a one-of-a-kind experience. It's the largest MS bike tour in Canada, and it raises looks like we're gonna raise $2.2 million from this year, which is the most of any MS fundraiser in Canada. And considering bike tours in total raise $8 million across the country, and there's 30-some bike tours, this bike tour, the impact it has on the lives of people living with MS in terms of the amount of dollars that it raises, that goes towards research and supporting services. So, I mean, it can't be understated how important it is. But I think every year or two you hear these stories and you get inspired to be involved and continue to be a part of it.
Well, I know the comment that Dave, the gentleman that was on my bike team, made to me. He felt incredibly supported as somebody who lives with multiple sclerosis, and just to see that many people take time out of their weekend and to put the effort into the fundraising, he really felt supported. And it is a pretty incredible event, and it's actually a really fun weekend. So anybody listening who wants to get involved, you can contact the MS Society. You can contact me, because I want as many riders on my own team as possible, because I'm pretty competitive and I want to see the fundraising just for my own personal team go up. But now you mentioned the fundraising and you kind of touched on where the money goes to, and I know that in about a month ago that there was an article in the Calgary Herald featuring a gentleman who was basically not speaking very kindly of the MS Society. What he was saying was that only a certain percentage of the money raised, like a very small percentage of the money raised, goes to actual research, and everything else goes to pay the staff salaries and that. And before I ask you a question, I want to frame it properly. The question I had that conversation, obviously, for doing this podcast with a number of people with MS, and we've all spoken about it. And the one thing that I found was missing from that article and missing from that person's attack on the MS Society is he didn't comment on how much money went to support services. And I found that the article and the journalist that wrote it should have asked that question, because it was horribly slanted. Basically, it framed it as though all these people raise all this money and it just pays salaries, and which isn't true, and you and I both know it's not true. But they didn't mention how much goes to support services and how much goes to do events like the bike tour and that. So can you just speak to that? Because I think that's really important for people to understand. When they donate to the MS Society, they're not just donating for research, which is also a part of what you guys do, but it's advocacy and it's support programs for, for me, I don't use any of the support programs because I function pretty well. Obviously, I can run long distances and do most of the stuff I could do before. But there are people with very, very progressive MS or severe relapsing remitting who really rely on those support services in their day-to-day lives. So can you just speak to that?
Yeah, and actually, that's as far as your observation goes, that's bang on. Like our mission is to be a leader in finding a cure for multiple sclerosis and enabling people affected by MS to enhance their quality of life. And so sometimes the second part, it's a dual mission. So the first half does deal with the fact that we're investing in research to find that cure and hopefully as well come up with more treatments that can support people with relapsing remitting MS, and now we're moving more towards funding research to help people with progressive forms of the disease. But recognizing that we have that dual mission, the other part is our client services, and so and that's a huge part of what we do because there's while we're waiting for that cure to come, there are people that need our support now, and certainly not everybody needs our support, as you're saying, but there are some people or individuals who they need help navigating the different systems of support that are in place, and that's why we have staff that do advocacy. There are people that when they're first diagnosed, they want to learn about the disease and what their options are, and that's why we have programs in place to provide education around that. So yeah, in terms of I guess in terms of those numbers that were presented, it might have been a bit misleading because you see the salaries, but those salaries are going towards certainly some of those salaries are going towards just the cost of fundraising that we have associated with running these events, but a large chunk of that salary as well is going towards making sure that we can provide those services and supports for people now.
And you're primarily self-funded, that's correct, right? I mean, there's not, is it, well, if I remember correctly, I think one of the emails I got from you guys was 98% self-funded, is that correct?
Yeah, 97% self-funded. Yeah, again, very close. And the thing about that is sometimes I know there's people look at our cost of fundraising nationally, it's 40%. And one thing that keeps our cost of fundraising, one of the challenges we have around our cost of fundraising is that most of our funds are raised through our signature events, so things like the MS Walk and MS Bike program. And so when your primary source of revenue is event-based, there's just higher costs associated with providing the support that we do on the bike tour, the dollars that go into organizing the walk. It's different than when you receive a grant from government, which again, we do not receive. We receive very little funding from government, and we're working on other things like our major gifts and stuff like that. But as it stands, like we continue to rely on our event-based fundraising as our primary source of revenue.
And I can speak to that a little bit because, I mean, last year was the first time I ever put on an event myself and my family, and it wasn't free. I mean, there was cost associated, and it's not a cost that people would necessarily think about. I mean, I probably spent well over $1,000 on sneakers just for training, just to be able to do the event. Now that came out of my pocket, but the point I'm trying to make is that was a small event, the really long run. To do something like the the Johnson MS bike tour, Nick. Remember, see, I got it? I got to put the Johnson in it. To do something like the Johnson MS bike, I mean, if you ever come or ever take part in an event, I mean, it's a huge event. There's 2,000 plus riders. There's a small army of support vehicles. There's the food. There's it would be an organizational nightmare, and there would be cost associated with it. And, you can't go up to a business and say, hey, can you come and feed 2,000 riders for free? I mean, it's just not going to happen. So just to support your point, Nick, like when you have an event that size and of that magnitude that generates those kinds of dollars, there's going to be a cost associated with that. And people just have to understand that. I mean, it would be nice if, everything was free for you guys, the MS Society, because then, maybe 90% of the money you raise would go towards, research or whatever. But that's just not the reality of the world we live in. Is that fair?
Yeah, and one thing I will add is when you look at just Alberta, our cost of fundraising is 29%. So we're very fortunate in Alberta in that our events do very well. I think it's not just the bike tour in the Duty Cameras. We also have the Area Olds tour in Calgary and the Red Deer tour, which is funny enough in Red Deer. But yeah, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of support across Alberta for the events that we're putting on. Continue to find success, and that that does help keep our cost of fundraising down. And certainly we're always actively looking, especially as I've taken this role on, we're always looking for ways to bring those costs down, so that we can make sure we're getting as much money as possible towards the research and again, like providing those services.
Yeah, and just so people out there know, when I did the really long run last year, there was even a cost to the MS Society for that, because there were members, and Nick came out to a few interviews, and Tyler and Paula and Jennifer, and there was a number of people that helped me with it. So there would be a cost associated with that as well. So just to be upfront about everything. I mean, nothing's free. There's there's no free lunch, right?
Yeah.
Moving on from that topic, I just thought it was something important to touch on. But moving on from that. Now, with the MS Society, can you just highlight maybe some of your favorite or some of the programs that you that really speak to you, or you really like, or you really think are cool that you guys are providing for MS warriors out there?
Sure. So right now, actually, we're as an organization, we're revisiting the different programs that we offer, and there's I'm not sure if I can talk about it just yet, but there will be, I think, an announcement happening in the next couple of weeks about some new programs that are going to be, a new program that is going to be offered by the Society. But one thing that I think it seems like is becoming increasingly important is our MS GPS program. And essentially what that does is we have staff that help people navigate some of the different challenges people might have when it comes to accessing the services that they need. So And there's a variety of different things that this can mean, whether it's issues around employment, accessing certain grants. Unfortunately, it can be if you've just been diagnosed, or you don't. You certainly, many of us are not experts when it comes to navigating some of these different systems, and so we created this program. I'm not sure. It's recent enough that I think it came into being while I was here in the last 4 years, but we've seen a lot of growth and demand in that area. So I think this is a service that we're still raising the profile of and making sure that it's available to people, but it's something that I think is it's a direction that I think you'll increasingly see the society going in terms of providing that to people living with MS.
Cool. Now I know you got to run here. You were, and actually, you're wondering about if 20 minutes is going to be good. It's going to be perfect, actually. So it worked out well, even though somehow I got my calendar screwed up, but that was my fault. But anyway, any final thoughts you want people out there to know about the MS Society? Just any final thoughts?
I'll just say that I think we're really grateful to work with so many fantastic people. I'm really grateful for the people that I get to meet on a regular basis that are doing so much good work across Alberta and Northwest Territories. I mean, it makes our job rewarding in that all the people that we get to work with and meet are always so passionate about, as passionate as we are about, trying to improve the lives of people living with this disease or impacted by it. And so, it's been, Sean, we've got to know each other a bit better over the last year, and that's been great. And you talk about the bike tour. I mean, the individuals you meet doing that, the walk. There's so many amazing stories of people taking ownership in their community about ending this disease. And from what I can tell too, and we just had the MS Connect 15 was a couple weekends ago, and one of the comments that one of the researchers made is, it sometimes feels that the cure can't come fast enough, but we're getting closer every day. And so, if anything, thanks for inviting me to come speak on the podcast, and always happy to have a conversation and share what's going on our end.
Well, you know me, I'm always going to have goofy stuff to annoy you guys with, so this probably won't be the last one. And just so you know, I'm already training for the run next year, so you guys better be ready.
Right on. Yeah, when's it happening?
Oh man, you're going to make me look at my calendar again. We did set the official date, and my mom approved it, so we're all good. Let me see here. It's May the 14th, Saturday, May the 14th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So
I don't know if I'll join you up the run, but I'll for sure see you at the bike tour.
Well, actually, I have 2 people this year that are running the whole thing with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, Chris from Blitz Conditioning has volunteered to train me, and he ran 20K with me last year. And he said he's going to come out and run the whole thing. And Jen Ferentz, who is a big part of the November project here in Edmonton, she ran with Chris and I for 20K last year, and she said that she's going to run the whole thing. So I've told them both I think they're nuts, because I know that I'm nuts, but it kind of goes with the territory. But anyway, Nick, thank you so much for joining me, and I'm sure we'll be talking again very, very soon.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks again, Sean, and catch you soon.
Okay, bud. Talk to you later.
Cheers.
Bye. So that's YEGMS episode number 9. This is the second to last episode of 2015. I'm going to be taking a break in December and coming back in January. So there'll be one more episode, and then I'm taking a little vacation. Thanks again to Nick Dehod for taking the time to talk to me today. He's a busy guy, so I appreciate the time, and we talked about the bike tour, so I'm going to plug it again. If anybody wants to join my bike team for the 2016 MS Johnson and MS Bike Tour, see, Nick, I got it. Johnson MS Bike Tour 2016. If anybody wants to join my bike team, the Battered Piles, get a hold of me. You can tweet at me at ownms.com1. That's own. I can't even speak anymore. That's at OWN, the letters MS, .com1. So OWN, MS, DOTCOM, and the number 1. You can email me at Sean at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. That's OWN, multiple sclerosis, all one word, .com. You can find the Really Long Run to End MS Facebook page on Facebook. You can find it at www.reallylongruntoendms.ca. Some exciting news actually about the Really Long Run website. Tyler from the MS Society has actually done some work there, and we're going to have it set up this year. So any support runners who are running, they'll have a donation page, their own donation page, just like you would with the Johnson MS bike. So that's pretty cool. Other notes before I sign off. I actually I'm getting an award tomorrow, and I think I've talked about this before. I'm not generally somebody who gets awards. Thankfully, I don't have to speak. But I'm getting an award from let me pull it up, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, the Edmonton and area chapter, tomorrow, for the work that I did with the Really Long Run last year. So that's pretty cool. I'm actually taking my mom to that event, so that's pretty cool to be able to spend some time with her. But anyway, that's the episode. And like I said, if you want to join the bike team, let me know. If you want to reach out to me, you can email me, Sean at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. Obviously, you can always visit the website at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. And we will talk to you again in a couple of weeks for the final episode of 2016.